It has been 1 year of doing meditations with Gateway Audios, and I have learned a lot. There has been many exciting experiences regarding deep meditations and phase states, be it conscious dreaming or dream conversion to outer body experience, and meeting dead loved ones, meeting my past selves, and meeting different entities in the non-physical dimension. And this video is a log of my recent meditation and outer body experiences. So, like before, I'm going to read out from my journal again. It's much easier that way. So, OBE 64. It took place on 4th December 2024. Around 3:48 a.m., I heard the tonal air pulsations and I waited for the ringing to appear, but it did not happen because I really had to go to pee. Then I went to the bathroom, came back and slept again and repeated the affirmations to get out of my body. Then around 5:30 a.m., I felt the air pulsations again and I tried to get out, but it felt like my physical body was moving. But this time I felt that the movement happened around my navel center, Manipur chakra. It felt like the physical body's navel center had moved, or not as moved in position, but it was in a motion. I did not go out just yet and waited. The tonal air pulsations followed. Soon the continuous ringing was established, and then I rolled out of my body. The non-physical body felt totally like my physical body, somewhat heavy while trying to move around. Then I did a pinch test and it did not hurt. Then I went close to the window just by feeling what's where, because everything was dark. I couldn't see anything, and I asked myself, how am I able to move if I can't see anything? This made it clear that I was in a OBE state. I opened the window, expecting the cold winter air, but of course there was no air and no sound related to opening the window. So I was quite sure, and then I jumped out. First, I wanted to go straight ahead towards the direction that my window faces. After going forward for a while, I decided to go backwards instead, towards Teleskivi, in Tallinn. I was moving forward little by little, and either a click happened or something which I faintly remember as meeting some young people and some grown-ups, but I don't remember the content of what happened there. I did not wake up after the experience because I wanted to just experience it more to try and understand what had happened. But instead, I just slept until 8 a.m., at which point I woke up and tried to remember the experience. But of course, by this time, a lot of the details was already forgotten. Perhaps I was just too tired to wake up to record just after the experience. Now, OBE 65. It took place on 7th December 2024. And during the day before and before falling asleep in the night, I kept the affirmations in my mind: out of body now, I meet my guide now, take me where I need to be. And at some point during my sleep, I felt a subtle knowing that I could get out. There was no tonal air pulsations this time, but hesitantly I tried to get out and I was successful. As I approached the window, I felt a block, like a table or something. I just moved around the object and opened the window and did a pinch test there and asked myself, is it hurting? And it was not hurting. Then I opened the window and tried to feel the cold air outside. It was not cold. Then I jumped out and said, take me where I need to be. Suddenly there was an upward movement and a click followed. I appeared in front of the planet. My entire vision field was just covered with the planet, just around everywhere. It was as if I was flying very high up in the atmosphere. There was this little fear in me being up there. I could feel this fear as some sort of tension around the third chakra or fourth chakra point. I remained there without moving and observed this fear in me. Then I remembered my previous experiences of being outside of the planet, OBE 3, 32, 46, and 65, and realized that the fear that was there in the first experience was now already diminishing, yet there was still some fear left. I also remember that there was no fear at all in visiting the familiar looking places like forest, building, hills, and whatnot that we have here and that I am familiar with. But then I asked myself, why the fear then in to be in the non-physical states where there is no familiar forms that I am aware of or that I know of or where I feel safe. So the basic question was, why this fear in me of being in non-familiar places? I thought that if I will always be afraid about going in the unknown places, I will never grow. This self reflection gave me a strength, and after a moment I said, all right, now let's go higher. And there was upward movement again. I kept on saying higher, higher, more higher. Kept on pushing up and up, and then I kept on moving away from the planet. Soon I arrived at a place much far away from the planet where only stars were visible, and I found myself in this very strange, starry space. Well, stars everywhere. Then I thought of turning around and looking at the sun, and so in my mind I was thinking I'd go inside the sun and see what's in there or how my experience would unfold, but I couldn't find it anywhere. It was just calmness, a nothingness space with stars everywhere, but they were nowhere close. And in this suspended state, in this darkness of space, I found myself alone there. There was no fear or anything, it's just aloneness, not loneliness. Then I started thinking, where should I go now? And at that point, a click followed. I appeared in a big square room as if I was kind of locked inside. Then I saw a small glass window which I couldn't break to get out from there. And I could see a small walking path outside from this window. And soon there were some people coming. Some of their faces looked like apes or monkeys, and some of them looked like humans. A knowing came to me that in this space, this planet, there were human and ape type of species or monkey type of species, and they were as much developed as the human type of species. So they were working together and they were communicating with each other in their own ways, and they were pretty calm. Everyone there I found was very calm. But I was a little afraid at first, and then this humanoid type of beings told me that I do not need to be afraid. And then they came closer and they broke the glass and pulled me outside of this enclosure. And some of the monkey beings, they went inside in this big cube space, and then they made it look very normal to me, or a normal place to be. So then I looked around the landscape and saw many large hills in all directions, and where I was a very small village of about few houses and on a hill slope. Then I walked a little bit with these beings and I asked them, where can I find the healer or the loving guide? They did not know where to find this guide, and I remembered that I was desperately searching for this guide. I also realized at that moment that in some other dimensions, my parents were divorced. They were both suffering, and I really, really wanted to help them in bringing them close together. Then I asked if they knew about this guide. I told them that I want to meet this guide and learn to heal. They said that they don't know anything about such guide. I kept on asking, and soon I started to float up, and outside of that place at about 45-degree angle. Then soon I arrived at another hill, a slope of another hill, almost to the top of this new hill, and I found an energy point where I found this guide. But this guide did not have any form. It was just love, a presence, or a knowing, or a calmness. It didn't have any form, but it was there. I felt total acceptance coming from this energy point. I remained there for a while and I came back to the same village place, and there they asked me if I found what I was looking for. I remembered what the guide told me and I told them the same. So this is what this guide told me. I know everything of the past, present and future. It is all right. It is all about learning and growing. What is happening to you now won't matter anymore once you graduate from what you are learning now. Just feel connected with this love and with the internal source and continue living. This was what this guide told me. Once I was done telling them this message from the guide, I got pulled back in my body and I returned feeling a total sense of strangeness. At this point, I realized that the horizon or distance from where I was not visible and also not so important to be visible. My immediate surrounding was very clear, but it was as if there was nothing in the distant horizon. just fades out to nothing. What is strange is that the distance of what is where did not matter at all. And it did not matter that I couldn't see, and I didn't care what is there in the distance to see. It felt like this tiny space was just built by my guides, maybe, to comfort me and remind me the powerful feeling of love that we all have inside of us, or that we have been given in our lives. It felt something like that. OBE 66 took place on 10th December 2024, and the night before I lay down on my bed repeating the affirmations, out of body now, I meet my guides now, please take me where I need to be. While doing the affirmations, I also created the energy balloon around me by doing long breathing patterns, and then I sent affirmations to my family, my friends, and I fell asleep after some point of continuously doing that. Then there was a dream conversion. In the dream, I was with my family members where I was showing my mother and my wife how to do an OBE. In a moment, some of them went out somewhere before they were about to go to sleep. Me and my wife, we went out from that space for a while. And then suddenly I started to test out if I was in a non-physical state already. I started to press the wall, walking around carefully, observing objects, and did some push-ups, etc. Then I realized I shouldn't be able to do push-ups that easily, which was the trigger point of knowing that I was already in the non-physical state. Then I pinched my hand. Of course, it did not hurt at all. I knew that I was not in my physical body for sure, and I had already phased out. I asked my wife, "Do you want to go for an adventure?" She said, "Let's try." And I asked, "Where do you want to go?" And she said, "Any natural, warm, and peaceful place." And I said, "Okay, let's go to the Astral Park." I held her right hand with my left hand, and we started to rise and fly. First, we went up to the roof. From the roof, we started to go out and away from the city. We were about to then strike into a building, which I didn't want to happen, and then end up in the nothingness, dark space, but I couldn't avoid. We went through the building and came out, but that must have been a click space. Because as soon as we came out of the building, it was a different place now, a very vibrant and green space. It looked like the farm fields around Roshi River in Khavre district in Nepal, but it did not look exactly like the physical counterpart I know of. It was mostly sunny, and there were light showers from the sky. Light rain. We were flying in a moderate speed, observing around this place, and I could feel the vibrations in my body as well. Soon we started to see some people. I told my wife that we can talk with them, and then we went down and started talking with some of them. Then there were other small details there. A boy in a cycle getting into accident, but he was okay. Then he woke up and took his cycle and continued going around and followed the same pattern. So it all happened again and again. And I told her, my wife, that this is how he died, and now he is in this pattern, in this loop, until he accepts that, or he understands of this loop, or some help is given. I don't know. Then we kept moving and arrived at a new place where I saw some people around. It felt like I know them and I have met them before, but in my waking reality, of course, I don't know them. And I told her that I have already met these people and I have been there before, and they may not know me, but I know them. And I have met them before in the astral plane, but I don't know if I have met them before in the astral plane. As a waking state consciousness, I do not remember that. They really felt familiar to me, and I have no knowledge of knowing them in my physical life, so this is what I wrote as well on my journal. And a little further away, I saw my grandmother. I approached her and asked what she was doing there. She said that she must do some work there, and close to her, I saw her younger son, my uncle, and his son. They were both looking sad, and I understood that my grandma was there to help them or guide them. And from there, me and my wife, we flew away next to a river. There I asked her how is she feeling, and she said, "It is already so much information for me." I told her, "If you feel like going back, you can just think of your physical body and you will be back." And then I asked her again, "But let's go a little further more, and then we can just both go back. She agreed. I held her left hand with my right hand. Then we jumped flight from the river cliff and went towards the hillside and started to move upwards. It was still raining, and she said that she wanted to go somewhere where it's not raining. I said out loud and hinting to the rain, let's stop this. We were still flying, but everything else stopped, including people that were moving around. They stopped as if everything came into a pause, like in an Inception film. Then I said, not everything, just the rain, please. Then the rain stopped, but then everything else started to move again. And we moved down the hill towards some farmlands, and soon I felt that I was getting back to my body. So I told my wife, hey, my body is pulling me back. You can do the return back command now if you want to go back too. Then I was fully back in my body and woke up to record the experience. And then I realized I still had to go to pee. This was the necessity of my physical body that started inside the dream at some point, which broke into an OBE. And when I came back, I realized I actually had to go to pee. Anyways, two different reality checks in this experience is that later that day I asked my mother how my uncle and his son is doing. She mentioned that my uncle had come to meet her in her office one day and he was not looking very happy. So my mother helped him a little bit, comforted him. Then he left and reported that he was able to calmly relax and sleep. And that had happened the same day I met my grandma, my uncle, and his son in my OBE state. So there is something about that. And also, later the same day, I asked my wife if she had any dream or anything that was closely related to what I had experienced. She said that she does not remember anything, no dreams, nothing. Then I asked if she woke up at any time in the night, and she said that she suddenly woke up around 3:10 or something in the morning, but then went back to sleep again. And that 3:10 is around the same time that I came back into my physical body and started recording the experience. So it appeared that we both came back together at the same time from the experience. However, on her part, she did not remember anything. OBE 67 took place on 14th of December 2024. During the day, I kept on repeating the affirmations, out of body now, I meet my guides now, awareness now, clarity now, and now I visit the higher astral plane. And before falling asleep, I visualized a big energy balloon around me, repeating the affirmations at the same time. And this time, the balloon felt naturally bigger and larger than before, and I focused my attention on each part of my body from toes to head, and maybe it took around 20 minutes to complete. But after that, the whole body felt very light and filled with gentle, numb-like vibrations, and soon I fell asleep. And during the night, at some point, I almost got awakened, but remained somehow in the focused 10 state. Then I visualized doing push-ups, and soon my second body started to move up-down with the push-up. Then there was a very loud tonal air pulsation, but it went away very soon. I tried again, visualizing doing the push-up. Then the second body moved again, and as it did, there was the tonal air pulsations again. I waited calmly this time, and about 2 to 3 pulsations later, the ringing was very loud in both ears. At this point, I rolled out and stood up, and it felt fully like my physical body, including the ringing or tinnitus like ringing was still there while I was already separated. But I was able to open my left eye and not the right eye, which was very difficult to open. And I knew that this was the proximity effect with my physical body, and I soon ignored it and approached the window. And I was climbing the table. I saw my computer on the desk. I moved it towards the wall and continued to open the window. And at this point, I did the pinch test and then jumped outside. There, I held the branch of this tree and continued to pull myself up. It was all dark around me, and I almost felt that I was getting back. So I looked around to establish myself there. Then I continued going to the top of this tree. From there, I couldn't see anything. Everything was still dark. And there I said, take me to the higher astral plane. I had the anticipation of upward movement, and I started feeling the movement. And somehow I pulled myself up, or it felt like that. And it was also from remembering my past experience of pulling myself up. Slowly, some visuals started to appear, but then a click followed. I heard some noises for a very short moment. It felt like the H-band noise, but this noise was soon gone, And I arrived at a place where I saw many of my university friends and colleagues. I told them I want to visit higher astral plane and asked them for help. I kept on asking this to everyone that I saw there, and one woman came closer. I knew her that she could help me, so I asked her for help, and she asked me to follow her. I went with her to this place where she gave me a form that I had to fill up. There I saw another woman who also wanted to visit the same astral dimension as I wanted, and then we were both given this form to fill up. I filled up this form and signed it, and then this woman asked me some questions. She asked, how long do you want to be there for, and what's the type of visit? It was almost like what felt like a visa related questions. Anyways, I said that it's a short visit, and then this other woman who also wanted to go also said short visit. Then I remember saying that I'd like to visit there for short periods, but with multiple entries. As much as I can, I would like to visit there more often during my OB state, more and more until the day I die. While I was saying that, I was specifically clear that until I die in my physical form in the physical matter earth, I would like to visit higher astral plane, learn from my experience, bring them back to the physical matter earth. She understood my wish and accepted it. And at this point, I got pulled back to my physical body. Then I noticed that there were noises coming from the apartment outside my bedroom. And probably this noise, my friends moving around, brought me back. So OBE 68 took place on 18th of December 2024, and this was also a dream conversion. In my dream, I was with my cousins going to the top of the mountain while walking through a small pathway leading to this top of the mountain. And after a short walk, I started to float and fly while they were still walking. And I wanted to fly close with them, but soon I started to float away from them at an angle of about 45 degrees. And I said, not away from them, please. Let's fly close to them. It did not work. I continued to float away. Then I said, that does it. Out of body now, out of body now. And then after repeating it for a few times, it broke that dream. And I found myself already phased out from my body. Everything was dark, and I rolled out of my bed and approached the window. There I did 2 pinch tests, one on my hand and one on my knee. After making sure that I was in the non-physical body, I opened the window and jumped out and held the tree branch. The branch of this tree felt very spiky, but it did not hurt at all, and I did not care at all either. I kept on climbing up, asking to take me to a higher astral plane. Soon the tree branch started to change from a tree branch to a rope made of insects, or at least it felt like that. The rope felt alive and made of many small insects connected together. And at this point, I had thought in my mind, what if I wouldn't be back? My story, my friends, my family, and everything I know and that I'm familiar with. Then I also realized that this is not the first time that I have wandered off out of my physical body world, and this small fear then went away. Then the darkness started to shift slowly to low gray light, and as a gradient, I saw more bright white light high up above, and I noticed that this rope that I was holding was connected to a giant insect, almost like connected to this giant insect's head, and which was still up above me. I kept on climbing, saying to the higher astral plane again and again. The spiky rope started to feel more easier to hold and then pull myself up. Soon the big insect above me felt like a mothership, or at least I felt that it was having no ill intention towards me. And as I reached to the top of this large insect, I felt a strong pull back to my body. And as I was back, I realized that I was breathing heavily. Not only that, I could also feel the last calm breath that I was doing before I fully synced back to my physical body, and immediately after syncing, my breath was heavy. I tried to breathe calmly again. It was a little difficult at first, so I took a few deep breaths and it became easier to breathe slowly after that. And this is the second time that I have found a heavy breathing immediately after returning to my physical body. I think there's a pattern there, or there could be a pattern there. Could it be that the physical body breathing slows down significantly when I am out in the OB state, and when I'm fully back to my body, this triggers the rapid need of more oxygen in the system? I don't know, maybe, but definitely more experiences will give more patterns from which I could find the answer. And in this experience, although as short as this may have been, I feel that it holds a symbolic connection to my journey that I don't know if I was shown if that was my past life as an underground dwelling insect, or that I was being tested before allowing me to let in to the higher self, or that the whole climbing with this insect ladder is a symbolic representation of overcoming my fear for growth. At the same time, all of these feels equally valid and true for me. Yeah. The tree in the physical counterpart these days, it does not have any leaf because of winter, and the branches look exactly like how I felt in the non-physical state. In this experience, the spikiness of the tree branch has softened a little bit, but the physical counterpart is still spiky as I see them from my window. Let's see how it will start to change in my next OBEs. So this is what I wrote for the general comments. And now OBE 69. OBE 69 took place on 19th December 2024, and during the day on my free time I was repeating the affirmations: break the dream, out of body now, awareness now, now I go to the higher astral plane. And in the night I repeated the same set of affirmations and fell asleep. Around 1:40 I changed my sleeping position to sleeping on my left side and put my left hand above my head like that. And after a moment I heard the tonal air pulsations. After the connection was established, I rolled out of my body, out of my bed, and took my regular route of jumping out of the window. Everything was still dark, which is usually the case. As I get out of my body, mostly everything is still dark. Well, then I jumped out, held this tree branch, and immediately realized that the branch was soft. I remember my previous OBE and thought that something must have changed after that. Then I said to the higher astral plane, and I kept on climbing up and up, holding this tree branch. Soon the darkness faded away, and I started seeing a place forming around me. It had familiar forms and structures that I'm familiar with, like buildings and trees, hills, etc. I kept on pulling myself up and saying up in my mind at the same time. As I continued climbing up, it started to feel heavy to pull myself up, and soon I couldn't climb up anymore. So I stopped and looked around to see what's in this place. I was hovering above the ground, from where I decided to float and look around. I saw some places and some people. It felt like early morning, and some people were running around and doing some yoga. On the roof of one building, I saw a woman doing yoga. I floated past by from her building, and I saw that she noticed me as well. I continued flying around and saw different places there, and soon there was a click. I felt half awake in a room. Soon the same woman came down from the stairs in that room. I knew that she was going out for her work or something because she was wearing her coat and shoes, and I felt that we had not talked before, and therefore I said hi. She said hi, and I said, just a thought, a question. Did you see me? And she smiled and said yes. Then I asked, where did you see me? And she says, no, it's nothing, maybe a dream or something. Then I said, because I saw you as well on the roof doing yoga. And she said, oh, I thought it was just my imagination or dream or something. I was doing pranayama. And I said, no, I saw you too. I was just out of my body and floating around. Then she asked, do you do this quite often? Referring to out of body travels. And I said, yes, I've been practicing this and do this quite often. So I saw that you were facing north and I was floating away from your left side. And she said, well, that's interesting. I saw you from my right side. Then I got confused there. So if I saw her from her left side, she should see me from her left side as well, because yeah. But she said that she saw me from her right side. Then I said, oh, this has happened a few times to me, that the directions are somehow observed in the exact opposite in the astral plane. And she smiled and said, interesting indeed. Do you spy on people mostly? And I said, no, I don't go looking for people. I just see them when I'm out. Once I went looking for my grandmother though. Then I asked her, so you are late for your work today? And she said, yeah, I am. Then I said, what will you say? She replied as if speaking to herself, well, I met an astral traveler. And then she started mimicking voices. Yeah, Ace, excuses, excuses. We both laughed, and at this point I learned her name. And I asked, oh, you're Ace? And she said, yeah, well, okay, Maya, see you again. And somehow she knows my name, or my name in the astral plane. And this name has been called at least 3 times in the astral plane, twice by my guides and now by Ace. Well, we both exited the building, and once out, she walked her own way. I looked around and then decided to climb up again. There was no rope, but I was still able to move up, and this time climbing was much, much easier. So maybe I needed to stop in that space and then communicate with people, sort of like acclimatizing myself into different spaces before moving further more up. It felt like that because first climbing up was easy, then it became difficult, and after some interaction around, it became easier again. So probably I should continue aiming for higher astral plane and the higher self, and at the same time also be open to experience whatever shows up there in this journey. That has been the experience so far, and we'll see you again after the next experience.